Well, g'day, ladies and gents. How are we tonight? We are kicking off with a debate situation with Tash Peterson, or Vegan Booty, as she likes to be known as, through her situations. We have been lining this up for a while, guys, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the comments so Tash and myself can have a debate with this situation. So the comments will be off as they are now, and we're going to bring in Tash, and we're going to have a yarn with Tash, and we'll move forward from there, guys. So thanks for everyone joining tonight. This is obviously going to be a little bit bigger, obviously the numbers. So sit tight, and we shall proceed with it. G'day, mate. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Happy days. Hold on. Just let me turn up the vol here. So there we go. I can hear you now. So, Tash, tell. Obviously, I mean, we're two opposite ends of the spectrum, big time. You're, animal. You want wellness for animals, and obviously, I'm with the farming side of things. And there's a very, very big, massive divide through this situation. Do you want to tell the people that don't know your situation? Do you want to maybe share? Yeah, give yourself a bit of an introduction on this one.
Yeah, sure. So I've been vegan for just over 3 years now, and I became passionate very quickly when I found out what was actually happening specifically in the meat, dairy, and egg industries, and the inherent cruelty in all industries that use animals for human gain. And I became quite active just over 2.5 years ago, and I've been involved in a lot of different forms of animal rights activism. And I guess recently a lot of my actions have received all this kind of media attention because I lean towards more like civil disobedience sort of thing, because I believe that's a great way to create social change and be a voice for these animals. So that's a bit about my background.
Yeah, and I mean, look, we've a lot of us have seen your situations. I mean, one of the situations you did was you stormed a footy field with a flag. Yeah, and I mean, obviously that had a lot of media coverage at the same time, and a lot of people were like, "Fuck, righto." I mean, how did that present itself to you? Like, towards, I mean, what was the response to that situation?
Do you mean like public response or overall, like just from everyone, like the media?
Overall response.
Yeah, I think overall the response was overwhelmingly positive, because not only did it receive all that media attention to allow me to put out that message of animal rights and expose these abhorrent industries, but I also had a lot of people personally messaging me saying thank you for exposing me to the truth and making me aware of the inherent animal cruelty happening. So I think, overall, these types of direct actions are really important for getting that message out there. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, and look, fair call. I mean, everyone's entitled to their rights, their opinions, their situations. Everyone's entitled to that situation. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, the question that everyone's asking, and mainly from the farming front, is you are a major promoter for the Dominion documentary. You state that everyone needs to watch Dominion, everyone needs to understand Dominion, bits and pieces, and it is a very confronting documentary. The question is, and I've had this come across so many times, the question is, why is it so biased? Why is it so sort of struck at one thing and doesn't share the rest of agriculture, of the farming industry?
In what way would you say it is biased? Because I believe that it's showing a number of, it's footage taken over the space of several years in a number of facilities and abattoirs. So I think it gives that kind of overall view. And I understand not every farm is what's shown in there, but it's showing that contrast of a wide variety of farming situations.
Yeah. So in reference to, obviously, that I'm a dairy farmer. I'm a third generation dairy farmer. I was a dairy farmer up until early this year. We ended up getting rid of our dairy farm because my dad passed away, and it was pretty much shut, closed case. We couldn't run that farm due to, not having the head of the family in that situation. Now, I'm in reference to the dairy side of things here. And fore and foremost, there's millions of dairy farms around the world, not just in Australia, but around the world. And out of those millions, there is probably more that utilise the ethical dairy procedures within the farming scene. I want to say ethical. So, for instance, our farm, we did what we call ethical dairy, which was we didn't separate the calves from the mama calves. Yeah, that was just, it's all about quality, not quantity. Yeah. Now, we did what we call a calf and foot system. So calf at the foot system, which allowed the mamas to obviously breed, give birth to the calf, spend anywhere up to 3 months in a paddock, like a birthing paddock, supply that calf with the amount of milk, and we had a rotation value as well. So this is a with the farming situation that we had over 4,500 head of cattle, dairy cattle. Now during that rotation, 4,500, that's a lot of heads. Yeah, that's a lot of cattle. That 4,500, maybe 300 would give birth. They'd spend that 3 months in the birthing paddock, supplying the needs to the calf.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the situation to this is Dominion pointed out that all dairy farms do this atrocious act of taking the calves away from the mums after 24 hours. Now, I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that in any way, shape, or form. That does happen, but it's a minority, not a majority. So, with our farm, we had the ethical dairy situation. This was incorporated in 1992. This was spread over from the European side. There's thousands of farms through the European situation, ranging from England, Scotland, Ireland, all the way through European nations, and it's the calf foot situation. Are you aware of the calf foot situation, or?
Briefly, from what you had explained before, I had a bit of a look into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, the calf foot situation is a like I said, it's been around since 1992. In 1996, the Australian Farming Association, or the Australian WA agricultural scene, introduced this program in 1996.
Mm-hmm.
Now, since 1996, there's about 400 farms throughout Australia that utilise this technique. The reasons it's utilised so much through these farms is because, one, the quality of milk is better, the livestock's calmer, there's no, how do you put it? There's no general stress between the livestock and calves and all the bits and pieces, yeah? Obviously with the milking rotations, you present so it takes about 2 hours to milk a herd of cattle, yeah? A standard shed can hold anywhere up to 50 cattle per milking session. With that milking session, you might have, let's say, 30 calves or 30 cows that have calves. Those calves, and look, I'm not saying it's a quick process in any way, shape, or form. It takes if you're going to introduce this new program to your farming system, it's going to take anywhere to 1.5 to 2 years to get it fully operational. But the whole idea with the calf to foot system is basically the calves walk up with the mums, the gates open, the mums walk into the milking shed, the calves stay back with a nanny calf. So a nanny calf is basically a cow that can't milk anymore. The calves stay in that yard with those cows, those older cows, calm, relaxed, processing situations. And then once that milking process is done, that mama calf walks out, walks back to the paddock. And it's pretty much nothing has changed. It's pretty much, it gives that chance for the calf to start weaning off that situation. It gives a chance for the calf to start actioning itself. And that system's been in action since 1996 here in Australia.
Okay. What I would like
yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to ask, because you said there's 400 farms using this technique in Australia, and you're claiming that ethical dairy farming is in the majority. However, there's between 5,200 to 5,800 dairy farms. And I would say that the standard legal industry practice is what you see in Dominion, where the babies are often immediately taken away from their mothers, the cows
Yep.
artificially inseminated, the males are killed. So wouldn't you say that a majority of the dairy farms are in fact using those practices?
So with that situation, so I've seen Dominion. I've had mates present Dominion to me, and I've watched the documentary. I've watched it full.
Mm-hmm.
The main concept for me with Dominion is the dairy side of things. Yeah, so I'll stick to dairy. I can't answer for the rest of the industry because we're dairy. We're not beef. We're not. You know what I mean? We're one side of this situation. Now with the presentation of dairy farms. Now I don't know if you're aware, but AI, so artificial insemination, yeah, it has between 65 and 75% of failure, 75% chance of failure. That's a big gap. That's a major problem. Now, there's maybe, I'm going to say 3% of the dairy community that are trying to utilise that, but it's not farming community. It's not family-run farms. This is corporate farms. This is factory farms. The exact farms that you guys are targeting are the factory farms. So the farms that every general farmer, every farmer that has a lick of honesty and moral compass with them are wanting to stop as well. These factory farms are actually destroying the honest situation with Australian farming. Now, with the AI, like I said, between 65 and 75%, it's a non-success rate. With a genuine farm, you will have anywhere up to, depending on the farm size too, yeah? I mean, you could range from maybe 10 head bulls to 20 head bulls. Natural breeding is encouraged. Natural breeding is gene lines. If you've got a strong gene line, you're not going to send those male calves to an abattoir. That's, you know what I mean? That's just, it's stupid. It doesn't make sense. A lot of dairy farmers have said to me, well, why would we send a solid gene line to the meatworks? Not only is that farm losing its gene stock, but it's also losing quality. And it's not about profit. It's definitely not about profit before we get onto that situation, because a lot of dairy farmers these days, they're making just enough profit to keep the farm running for another year. It's not about money in the pocket. It's about keeping the farm running.
Okay. And so another question is, you said the babies are removed from their mothers at 5 months old, and that's still a very young age. I mean, naturally, they're meant to be with their mothers usually to about 12 months. And I was wondering what happens to the babies once they are removed from their mothers.
So the maximum is 12 months. Definitely. Completely agree with you there. Maximum is 12 months. And cattle are a natural herd species. They herd together. They're a family-orientated species. But 5 to 6 months is the minimum, yeah? Once those calves are separated or weaned off, they're not just flogged out to slaughterhouses or anything like that. If the gene stock's good, the females are kept on the property and rotated as accordingly. They're not put straight into milking, obviously. I mean, you're looking at maybe 2-3 years solid before we put them into a milking program. The male calves, they're taken away at 6 months, and they are reformed into potty calves, because you want a bull to be calm, you want a bull to be approachable, you want to be able to use them in a breeding situation. Now, a lot of the potty calves, the male potty calves especially, they're utilised to be able to be approachable, to be able to be handled, leashed, name it, right? Because the last thing you want to do is walk into a yard and have a 500-pound bull smash you against the fence. You want to be able them to be calm, be approachable, be able to tend to them in the field. So it's this spectrum that, I mean, Dominion pointed out that they get rid of the male calves. Like I said, it's only a small percentage. It's not a major percentage. And it was very, very one-sided. Because Chris, what's his name? Chris Delforce, he was the producer. Yeah, so Chris Delforce, I mean, during that Dominion documentary, not once did he talk to any dairy farmer element. You know, I mean, there was a lot of footage, there was a lot of hidden cameras, there was a lot of drone footage taken. It was all in, it was all taken in Victoria. Was it, what was it called? Bellarine or something like that. It was, forgot the community. It starts with a B. It's like Bellin something, but they only filmed one section of that farm. One farm that had, you know, in a state that has thousands. So, you know, it's very, very one-sided. You know, there's ethical dairy. The cattle are treated like their number one employees. The only difference is with this is we're not paying them $50 per litre. Do you know what I mean? Because, I mean, let's face it, if you had a cow walk into the store and they give you a $50 note now for ask for a pack of Sandboy chips, it's going to be a bit, how you going? The only difference with these cattle is, you know, their payment is they spend the rest of the day in the field eating grass, eating feed, you know, enjoying the situation.
Sure, I'd still argue the fact that they are being bred into existence for human benefit, and they're being exploited for their bodies. I mean, are all the male calves let to live out their lives, or are they sent to slaughter? I mean, what happens to the dairy cows once they're spent and can no longer produce breast milk? Are they still sent to slaughter?
A majority of the cows that cannot produce milk anymore are used as nanny cows for future stock. That's ethical dairy. Yeah, I can't answer for the mob in Victoria. I can answer for the mob here in Western Australia. I mean, you were saying yesterday that you were heading down to Margaret River. There's dairy farms down there that utilise ethical farming. So, you know, like you said, when a cow runs out of milk, we're not going to send them to a fucking slaughterhouse. It's not going to happen. Like I said, with the ethical dairy farm, with the calf at foot, nanny cows are utilised to keep them calves calm while their mum's getting milked. So it's you know, like I said, this is what we've done here in Western Australia. And like I said, I can't answer for the mob over in Victoria. And I can assure you that there's been a lot of farms in Victoria that have gone under the RSPCA watchdog. Dr. Richard Russell, who was, you know, he's the current chairman of RSPCA in Australia. Dr. Russell has been at the forefront of most situations when it comes to animal welfare. In fact, he was one of the fellows that was there back in November 20th, 2018. He signed the bill, the animal welfare bill, the new amendment that's been placed forward for animal welfare and animal protection. So, you know, this fella has signed a bill of, like a new bill that's been changed for the benefit of animals. Now, I'm not talking about beef, I'm not talking about sheep, I'm not talking about chickens, pigs, goats, whatever. I'm talking about dairy farm. We've highlighted this. The dairy farm industry, if they're legit and they're not factory owned, they're not commercial, they're not company like conglomerate owned, they will do everything in their power to make sure that those animals are treated better than any other animal in that situation. Because it's all about quality down here. It's not about quantity. It's never been about quantity in Western Australia. Now, with Harvey, you were stating you went to Harvey?
Yeah, I have been to Harvey. I was just about to bring that up. I was invited onto a property where I saw the babies who had been removed from their mothers just days old and weeks old, and she was openly saying that most of the bobby calves are sent to slaughter.
Yeah.
And yeah, these babies were just locked in these cages and they looked absolutely terrified. It was very disheartening to see.
Yeah. And I would imagine that'd be absolutely disheartening to see completely. I completely agree with that. And with the farm that you went to, I mean, was it owned by them or was it managed by this couple?
I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, because we were sort of just driving by and I was just going to take some photos of the bobby calves, and we were sort of just invited in, and my focus was to just get all the footage, and she was sort of chatting, but it sounded like yeah, it was just a part of the Harvey Dairy.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So Harvey Dairy itself has been foreign owned for the last 15 years. So it's foreign companies and corporate companies owning Harvey. Now we're all aware of Harvey Fresh, yeah, like Harvey Dairy, Harvey Fruit, Harvey Beef. You know, it's a big business, but it hasn't been Australian owned for 15 years. It's been foreign owned. I don't know if it's Chinese. I don't know if it's Indian. I don't know, but it's foreign owned. And the original farmers of that region have left. They've moved out. They've left that region, and a majority of those farms are now managed by managers, you know, selected by the businesses and presented to it. So when like, and look, I'm not taking anything away with what you stated. You've gone down to this farm and you've gone, fuck, like this is wrong. You're completely right. It is wrong. It's morally and ethically wrong. That's not how farming goes. A genuine dairy farm, an ethical dairy farm, will not lock or take calves away. And this is why I'm so passionate about this, because it's the corporate farms, it's the factory farms that are destroying it for the honest ones, the honest dairy farmers. That's the problem. And when you see these, and I guarantee if you went against factory farms, if you stood up and you went, right, nailed them to the wall, you would have a very large amount of genuine family-owned farms back you up, because the factory farm situation, let's face it, they want quantity over quality. They pump shit out. They destroy the honesty behind this farming scene. That's what I'm trying to get across to the board. Now I know you're not going to agree with me on that situation, but that's what's going on. That's what's destroying the honesty with farming.
Okay. I would like to know precisely what happens to the bobby calves that are not used as bulls. Are they sent to slaughter?
Well, in regards to what, like family or business run farms?
Both.
In both, I can tell you now, business run farms, corporate farms, they go straight to the slaughter. That's a given. That's facts. Bloody oath, it's facts. When it comes to family farms, the male calf, look, if you can't present a bull, it's not up for slaughter. It's not up for slaughter. There's different ways you can utilise livestock to benefit the farm. Now, for instance, 90% of Margaret River's land is wine country. Yeah, you're aware of that. There's vineyards all the way through it. It's actually number one in Western Australia. Now, if you can't present a breeding bull, which by the way is very rare, if you can't present a breeding bull in that situation, then they're used for pest management or grass control throughout the vineyards. There's Stella Bella, one of the biggest vineyards down south. They utilise sheep and cattle to keep the grass down around the vineyards. They let them out for the day, they chew on the grass, they bring them back that night. They get treated bloody great. But if it comes to, obviously, like I said, if it comes to the corporate business side of things, then yeah, they just don't give a shit. It's numbers to them. But that's not what we're about down south. That's not what we're with genuine farmers. It's not about that. We're not about numbers. We're about keeping the gene stock alive and keeping the quality going. That's the whole point of it.
Sure. Yeah.
I know, it kind of goes against everything that you stand for. And look, I respect what you stand for. I mean, morally, high ground wise, it's a good thing. It really is. You're defending the animal rights. But when you put the whole dairy farm into that same tin of paint, you're going to get dairy farmers going, well, hold on. No, that's not how it goes. Sorry, mate. Hold on.
That's all right.
All good. Someone's about to... Fuck's sake. It's not about, like I said, it's not about genuine farmers looking for quantity. It's about quality. A lot of these farmers, a lot of these dairy farmers aren't looking for profit. They're just looking to keep their farms going for the following year, because a lot of these dairy farms, we're not backed by the government. We're not funded by the government. We're funded by the banks. The banks will destroy us if we can't make a means to an end. So when you see things like Dominion come out and it's very one-sided, and it was Amanda Radke from Guardian newspaper or Guardian media. She stated that Dominion was very one-sided. Hidden footage was uncalled for in an open industry. I mean, everyone knows where this product's coming. Everyone knows where this all comes from. It's up to them whether or not they want to know the details. Yeah, they can ask the question because it's all open. And all they need to do is just jump onto Dairy WA, Agricultural WA, the state and federal parliaments with agriculture. They can jump onto it. They can get that information straight off the internet, and it's brutal. It's not sugar-coated in any way, shape, or form. It's straight to the point. This is how it's processed. This is how it's analysed. This is how it's done. And from point A, point B, point C to consumer, it's there. So it's like I said, I can understand where you're coming from with your situation. I really do. And I respect your passion about it. But not every dairy farmer is a bad guy. Not every dairy farmer is out there destroying these situations. There's a lot of farms, there's a lot of owners, a lot of family-run farms that are doing the honest thing. It's a very, very open industry.
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing inherently against any farmer or anyone that works in these industries, and I can understand, especially because of the media and their way they twist animal rights activists and that sort of thing. Obviously, they're going to make it out to be that way, but we're not inherently against you, but we're against what you're doing. And I understand that a lot of farmers have a good heart and they truly do care for the animals. But what I'm against is this systematic violence that's normalized, and we don't see it as immoral. But when you really think about it, we are using these animals for our own gain, and we don't need to consume flesh or secretion. So why are we still doing it to animals? And I want to be able to work together with farmers, because even though we're on both different spectrums of the coin, we ultimately want to see the same world. I want to see farmers choose more ethical and sustainable farming options where it doesn't cost an animal's life or their exploitation, because even though you may not send your animals to slaughter and you say you care for them, which I don't doubt you do, you are still exploiting them to make money for milk.
But again, it goes back to the topic of what I stated before. You know, we're not profiting from this. Like I said, we're making enough to keep the farm going. It's not about making millions in this industry. This is family inherited farms. Yeah, some of these farms still have $1 million debts on them from banks. So we've got to, year by year, we've got to keep going. We've got to present to the banks that we're making profit for them. We rarely see a cent in that industry. And it's been proven time and time again through CSIRO, through the RSPCA, through Commonwealth Bank West, NAB, Bank of Queensland. You know, each bank. I mean, the recession back in 2009, there was that many farms taken over by the banks, and that's when the foreign-owned company stepped in and went, right, we're going to take these. And that's when factory farms started stepping in, and all the foreign-owned companies started stepping in and taking these farms away. Started creating this thing that Dominion's showing. You know, it's as much as I respect Chris's passion for animal welfare, he showed one farm, one abattoir in the Victoria region. There was no sort of first-hand chats with genuine dairy farmers. I can understand that you use Dominion to get the mass or get the people involved, but again, it comes down to the fact that the Dominion documentary really didn't divulge on the facts. One farm, one abattoir, it's a bit of a, do you know what I mean? Look, I mean, I'm not going to ask you to look at it from my eyes, but when you're a dairy farmer and you've made every effort to make sure your cattle, your livestock is A1, and you sacrifice, I'm not talking weeks or months, I'm talking years, you sacrifice your freedom and your benefits to make sure that your livestock is A1, not for quantity, for quality. I mean, it's a big thing. And then when you have Crystal Force doing this documentary, I mean, it really, really ruins the situation. It really destroys all that effort.
I think the footage in Dominion is not just from one facility. As I mentioned earlier, it's footage taken over several years, including that footage in the dairy industry. I think that's a number of facilities in different states. And it's just speaking on industry standard practice. Because even though you've mentioned that there's 400 of these apparently ethical dairy farms, where there's between 5,000 to 6,000 dairy farms in Australia, that's showing that a majority of those farms are doing those standard legal practices where they are artificially inseminating the cows and they are killing the bobby calves and taking the babies from their mothers.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of representing that standard practice.
Yeah. But again, this is the media. This is the media exploiting both sides. Yeah. This is the media going, this is what we're doing, and then the media going to you guys, this is what they're doing, and then you guys going, this is what they're doing, and this is what we're doing. You know, it's all the media feedback. Because I guarantee, if you went down to an actual genuine dairy farm, you'll understand. I mean, it's pretty much forefront. You will walk into a dairy farm, a genuine dairy farm, and you'll see calves and cows and every situation. Just it's a system. You know. For us, as soon as we turn the stereo on in the morning, we'd always get up at like 0300 in the morning, go out to the shed at 0330, turn the stereo on at 0430. The cows start walking up to the pen yard. You go to the pen yard gate, open up the pen yard, all the milking cows. It was, you know, they just come in, do their thing, walk back out. That's genuine farming. That's taking care of your livestock. That's making sure they're not stressed, they're not pigged out. But when you see the video footage on Dominion, from what I can see and from what I've watched, it's one farm. It's not an entire section of farming. It's one dairy farm, and it's. I mean, you see the chutes, you see the sheds, you see the paddocks, and if you're a farmer, you know how things are. And each property, each dairy farm has a very, very unique layout. Yeah, very, very. It's almost mechanical when it comes to property layout. 9 times out of 10, you've got the 3 breeding yards. You will have a long yard, which is pretty much a retirement yard. It's like a retirement village. You have a breeding, like with the feeding yards, so the feeding grounds or grazing grounds. With this property on Dominion, you know, it wasn't a big property, and it was. I don't know, like it was kind of, when you looked at it, you're like, where's the feeding grounds? Where's the breeding grounds? You know, like the drone footage just didn't divulge on that land size. And I mean, I'm not sticking up for this farm. What they've done, and I'm pretty sure they've been under investigation. I mean, like I said, there's been a lot of properties in Victoria that have gone under investigation since 2018, since the new bill was put in play. And I wouldn't be surprised if that property was actually under, and if not terminated, due to malpractice. It's very common. It's a very big thing in the agricultural industry. If you don't treat your livestock accordingly to the standards, you will lose your contract. You will lose your farm. You will lose your livestock. You will lose everything that you've worked for. It's a very big thing.
Yeah, I mean, the guidelines on the Animal Welfare Act are just recommended practices, they're not mandatory, so I'm not sure how these properties are being investigated when all they're doing is legal standard industry practice, because it is legal to kill the male calves when they're just days to weeks old. It's legal to take the babies from their mothers, and it's legal to forcibly impregnate the mothers.
Yeah,
and
and
footage in
yeah,
Dominion showing they're taking the calves away from the mothers in open pastures from a number of different farms. I don't think it's just one property. I've seen numerous farms and footage in Dominion of them doing these consistent
okay.
practices.
Okay, and look, I'm not gonna agree with you. I'm not gonna disagree. Let's agree to disagree on that one, definitely. Because
Sure.
from what I see and what you see, it's again, there's two different spectrums, definitely. So we'll agree to disagree on that one. And it's as I'm getting to with the dairy farm situation, it is a big industry, yeah. And there is organisations that have taken over the dairy industry. They have taken the honesty away from dairy. It's left us farmers high and dry, not only just financially, but farming quality, because we're in competition with foreign-owned companies. And let's face it, they don't give a flying fuck about their livestock. They don't care. It's profit for them. You know, they see a herd of dairy cows, it's money for them. We see a herd of dairy cows, it's quality for us. I mean, the farm that we had, the family farm that we had, I could walk out to every single calf, touch them on the head, play with them, have a fun time with them. They knew me. It was great. That's how we raised our cattle. You know, human interaction was a big thing for our system, our program, because you want to be able to, like I said, in the morning, turn the stereo on, turn the music on, and have them cows come down on their own terms. Because not only was it a feed aspect for them, but it was a time for them to just chill out. And that's what it was. You hook up the udder system to them, the milking system, they'd be there for maybe 30, 40 minutes getting milked, and then out they go back out to the yard. Relaxed. I mean, some of them they just didn't give a shit. They were chilled. So that's ethical farming. That's the whole, this is what I've been trying to get across. It's not every dairy farm is a monster. Like 95% of all dairy farms give a shit about their livestock. They give a shit about the animals that they're milking from. A dairy cow on our farm would live out their full life on our property. They'd be in the long yard during retirement. You know, I can't tell you how many times I go out. You know, every year we go out. It'd be anywhere between 4 or 5 deaths per month from old age, not over produce. Yeah, and that sucked. That was sad. I hated seeing that. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to bawl my fucking eyes out, because there'd be some of those cows. Some of them, being a young fella, walk up, pat them on the head, and fucking play around with them, and then months later they're dead. Not from unnatural causes, but natural causes. So that's how I was raised. That's how we ran our farm, ethical dairy. So, with your situation, like I said, you're very passionate. You're very switched on with your situation, and I respect that. But us dairy farmers, us genuine dairy farmers, we don't want to be painted with the same brush. We're not factory farms. We're not corporate owned. We're family run businesses. And I know there's a few lads. I know you've been offered a few times with people, come down to my land, come check this out. I offered at one stage. And I mean, that probably would have been fulfilled if it wasn't for what's happening in our situation. And you're fully aware with what's happened with mine. So, if you wanted to look at a sheep property, bang, come on out, come check it out. I'm quite happy to have you out at Narrogin for a couple of nights so you can see what's going on. Because like I said, not every farmer is out there to take advantage of their livestock. If anything, we look at livestock as employees. Like I said, the only difference is they don't get paid with money, they get paid with top quality feed, medical care, and freedom. The only thing that they've got to do is especially with sheep, once in a while they've got to go to the shearing shed during early onset of summer, get sheared, get sent back out. They spend the 6 months during summer, nice and cool. Like I said, I'm not expecting you to agree with me on this, but this is the genuine side of farming.
Yeah, sure. What I would argue is that I know a lot of vegans and animal rights activists are completely aware that there is this other side of farming. We choose to focus on the majority because approximately 95% of animal products that Australians are buying do come from factory farms. So I can understand why you feel like we are painting it with the same brush, and we understand there are those differences. However, regardless of the conditions that these animals are brought up, no matter if they're treated like royalty, the end of the day, they are being subjugated to this systematic oppression. And you say that the cows don't care, but that's what they're conditioned to do. They've been born into this enslavement, and that's all they know.
Okay.
They're truly living
Okay.
a free life. And a majority of
Okay.
these
Now,
animals
look, again,
but they
yeah,
are sent to slaughter. They're sent to be
yeah,
shot in the head and have a knife to the throat, you know?
yeah. And as I've said before, I'm not denying that element in any way, shape, or form. But it's not, like I said, it's not the people. It's not the majority. It's the minority that are doing it. It's the minority affecting the majority. Yeah, the corporate farms, factory farms, they're destroying an honest industry. And it's not just you guys raising this. This is going through agricultural meetings. This is going through council meetings. Just north of Perth, up around Gingin region, there's a factory farm located in Gingin. Now, the farmers around Gingin have been going to the Gingin Council and complaining about this factory farm. Now, the complaints have been pretty straight up. They're taking the honesty away from farming. You know, that's farmers. That's farmers kicking up a stink about factory bloody farms. And this is what I'm saying. If you targeted factory farms, if you went, right, fuck it, we're going to go to factory farms and we're going to confront them, I guarantee you will have Aussie farmers, genuine farmers, backing you up all the way. That's a guarantee, because we want the farming industry, we want the agricultural industry to be as transparent as possible. We want people to know what they're purchasing. We want people to know where it comes from. And we want people to understand that it's not a beautiful industry in any way, shape or form. But at the same time, it's as honest can be. You know, it's sorry, dogs running around. But this is, you know, we're in agreement when it comes to the factory farming and the corporate farming. It's not a good thing. It's detrimental to the Australian farming industry. It destroys everything. And that's foreign decisions. That's not Australian decisions. And again, it comes down to the government. The government filling their pockets. You see where I'm getting at? There's a lot of people in government now that want to make money. They don't give a shit about the welfare of anything else. They just want to make profit. And it leaves us completely and utterly bare to the world. And that sucks, dude. That really, really sucks. Because, again, nothing against what you believe in, but when you have activists coming out to your property and destroying what you've worked so hard for, especially when you've got no backing, the suicide rate with farming is through the roof. Like, just this year alone, there's been 23 suicides down south, ranging from Bunbury all the way down to Eucla, Western Australia. Now, out of that 23, 4 or 5 I know, you know, either personally or through my circle of situations. Not saying it's the activists doing that, but it's the pressure added to the situation. But one of the questions that I wanted to raise with you, Tash, was, I mean, you talk about raiding properties, you talk about like the moral constitution of protecting animals, and you know, getting these animals off these properties. I don't want to see a farmer be on the wrong end of the law with this situation. Now, when I say a farmer, you're quite aware that a majority of farmers have firearms on their properties, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah. The last thing I want to see on the news is someone being shot because they've entered the property. I don't want to see a farmer go to jail. I don't want to see an activist die. I don't want to see that at all. And I'm a strong advocate for that. I've had plenty of mates ring me up going, if I see an activist on my property, I'm going to shoot him. And that's a life sentence for both parties. That's someone loses their life both ways, physically and mentally. What's your opinion on that situation?
Yeah, obviously it is concerning knowing that some farmers are willing to do that. However, nothing is going to deter animal activists from going inside facilities and exposing the truth.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you probably have heard of James Warden, who also, by the way, said he'd be willing to have a chat with you, but he's actually been inside these facilities, and you probably know the story about him taking
Yeah.
out that bobby calf from a local WA farm,
Yeah.
dairy farm. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but nothing will deter us.
Yeah. And look, that's fair enough. That's, like I said, that's your passion, that's your drive, that's your situation, and that's it. You know, and this is the whole reason for this format. This is the whole reason to debate the situation. I'm presenting facts to you, you're presenting your facts to me, and it's, you know, that's it. There's no hostilities. What I want to see is maybe a mutual situation, right? And look, this is a bloody long shot. I'm not going to deny this. This is a massive long shot. But like I said, if you went against the corporate farm situation and you went against the factory farm situation, you will find that there will be farmers that will back you up to stop this situation, to keep agricultural transparent. Now, in saying that, I mean, how would you feel about that being incorporated with you guys? I mean, if we work together to target that situation and then improve the farming scene based on, like I said, morals, ethical, you know, not so much profit, but keeping things stable. I mean, how would we achieve that? How would you want to achieve that?
I mean, obviously it'd be great. I mean, abolishing factory farming is a fantastic step in the right direction. However, I do not have a welfarist approach. I'm about animal rights and giving them a right to live freely without human interference or being used for human benefit. So, I mean, yeah, as I said, that's a great step in the right direction. And I would like to work with people who want to abolish factory farming, but I'm all for abolishing animal agriculture as a whole.
Okay. All right. So in that sentence, if we abolished the requirements for meat, if we stopped all this farming altogether, we just knocked it on the head, what would be the next step for Australia?
Well, it's a gradual sort of supply and demand process, which is already beginning to happen because we're seeing a significant increase in demand for vegan products in the markets. And I mean, a lot of animal farmers are switching to more ethical and sustainable plant-based farming. So I guess that gradual process of the increase for vegan products and a decrease for animal products is already going to kind of slowly move into that pathway of a plant-based future.
Okay. So with a plant-based future, this is the next element right here and then. So obviously with you guys, you're encouraging a vegan or a plant-based farming situation. How are you guys going to stop the chemical usage for plantation? Because one of the situations with agriculture or vegetation agriculture, they use a lot of chemicals because we've got a lot of nasty bugs here. We've got a lot of nasty viruses throughout Australia that destroy, you know, vegetation very, very quickly. I think 2008 they introduced the GMO product, the genetically modified variant of wheat, and they introduced that, and then it kind of went really good for a while, but then it just spread out and ended up creating another problem. I mean, if we're willing to, I mean, if hypothetically, if we're willing to step into that situation and become a vegetation proprietor, you know, how do we combat that chemical like how do we stop that chemical situation? Because it's very common. I mean, a lot of farms, I mean, if you go to a market garden these days and you walk into a market garden, you look at the presentation they've got, there's beautiful lettuce, beautiful tomatoes, all the bits and pieces, but then you see a shed behind them and you go, what's in that shed? What's their response? Oh, nothing's in that shed. And it's That's very common. That's a very common situation. I mean, we buy fresh, like we grow our own vegetables on our property now. Like the new house we've got a veggie garden at the back. We're proud veggie growers. We love growing our own vegetables, but mass production, mass populace require more, require a larger quantity. How do we combat that element? Like, how do we stop that chemical introduction to vegetables?
Well, firstly, I'd like to address the fact that a majority of crops grown are to feed these industrialized farmed animals. So if people were to abolish consuming animal products, that issue itself is already dramatically decreased.
Okay.
Because a vegan diet uses approximately 10 times less land and therefore a significant less amount of crops compared to someone on an animal-based diet. And then I guess, yeah, obviously working on that issue of using chemicals and all that sort of thing for produce is something that needs to be resolved once we actually reach to that point in time. I guess
Okay.
the main focus is on the removal of animal products first.
Okay. So in Brazil, like South America, the Amazon River, yeah. So per day, there's anywhere up to 400 acres cleared and developed for vegetation farming, not livestock farming. Livestock farming is a totally different element over there. With the vegetation farming, they're clearing out Amazon rainforest sections. You know, like I said, a big, massive number. Yeah, 400. I think it's like 400 square meters a day or something fucking massive like that. How do we, knowing Brazil does that, knowing Australia's soil situation? I mean, we're West Australia alone. We're a clay soil base. Yeah, so vegetation is a major struggle here in Western Australia. I mean, yeah, and you state like, you know, what was it? What was the percentage for livestock you were saying vegetation was?
Sorry, what do you mean?
Like we're using vegetation to feed livestock. What was the percentage again?
I don't have a percentage, but I know that a majority of crops grown are to feed farmed animals.
Right. Okay. So without that percentage factor towards animal, livestock, and animal husbandry, that kind of stuff, how are we going to combat that scenario? Especially when Australia is a very, very unique landmass. Like I said, Western Australia alone, it's 95% clay. Topsoil is clay. It's almost impossible to cultivate vegetation without a chemical in a topsoil. And we all know topsoil, the way they introduce topsoil, it's chemical based.
Yeah, well, far less land would be required to feed a vegan diet than an animal-based diet. And the University of Oxford did a study and found that removing animal products from one's diet they found that global farmland could be reduced by up to 75%. So a lot less land
Okay,
is required to feed this diet.
Yeah, and so which Oxford was that? Was that England or Australia? Oxford.
England.
England. Yeah. So England, Oxford, and I've been to England, Oxford. We've done presentations at England, Oxford, not for agricultural but different variants. And I was actually very interested in their agricultural programs at Oxford. Oxford bases a lot of their farming techniques on where they are. Yeah, they don't base it on land mass in Australia. They don't base it on land soil content in Australia. They base it on England, Scotland, Ireland, European avenues. Yeah, where the temperature and the climate's a lot different to what we have in Australia. So if we were, like I said, hypothetically, if we were to create a vegetation farming element, agricultural, and we based everything on vegetation, the problem we would face is we'd have to use chemicals to create this situation. Now, I completely understand with you saying if we stop feeding livestock and we turn it around and we go completely veg and we focus on the human element, that's cool. Completely agree with that. That's a great idea. But if we haven't got the land mass or the soil to grow it, technically we're kind of up a certain creek without a paddle, long term. Like, I mean, what's your opinions on that one?
Well, I'd still come back to the fact that a majority of the land is occupied by livestock in their feed, and if we were to remove that, there's a huge, enormous amount of land that's going to be available. And even though a lot of land in Australia is uninhabitable, there's still going to be that mass amount of land available to grow plant-based foods. Because at the moment, it's been occupied by mass amounts of crops and areas for livestock to breed them and their feed. And if we think about it, an animal consumes far more resources and food than what a human diet does, especially if you're eating a vegan diet. Significantly less resources and crops are used for a vegan diet.
Okay. Yeah. So, like, again, with this situation, the West Australian feed situation, right? So down south, it's green pastoral land. It's habitable for a period of time. It's not a long-term effect. It's a short-term effect. The amount of times farmers are regrassing their land or recultivating their land so it can accommodate is not as big as what people think it is. Yeah. When you look at the broader spectrum of West Australia and its soil content, like I said, it's clay based. So you'll have this as topsoil, that as clay. Now that topsoil is not a protein rich topsoil. It's just, you've seen it. You've probably seen it firsthand. It's black dirt. It's completely black dirt. And the only things that do grow from it are certain variants of gum tree, succulents. There's a variant of kangaroo paw bushes. Yeah, they thrive off that lack of protein. They're a water-based plant. They don't need that massive protein. And they're drought resistant. And pretty much every shrub, every plant in this state is drought resistant. Yeah, they can have a big gulp of water and then 12 months later get another gulp of water, but they're still thriving. They're designed to retract their situations and survive off what their storage has. So in that sense, when it comes to vegetation farming, I mean, how are we going? I mean, look, Australia's already got a low water board, yeah, and vegetation needs water. So I mean, how do we combat that element? Because we're already in a water shortage. That's the milestone question there. How do we accommodate vegetation farming when we've got lack of water? Do we import it from another country? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, animal agriculture itself as a whole uses mass amounts of water. So if we were to abolish animal agriculture, there would be an abundance of water. I mean, think about it. I mean, the dairy industry in particular uses significant amounts of water. And if those industries weren't to exist, think about how much water would be available for us to use.
Yeah. No, and look, I agree with you there too. But at the same time, when you look at the dairy industry, you look at the locations of dairy industries. They're located at high water tables. The consumption of water in the lower south, yeah, it is higher, but it's more applicable down south. There's more rainfall down south in the greater south, not just Western Australia, but Western Australia, South Australia, Victoria, Southern New South Wales, Tasmania. You know, there's some major green states right there and then. And they can accommodate for that water usage. But like I said, if you go complete vegetation farming, agriculture, do you know what I mean? There's a broad spectrum. But sorry, I don't want to sound rude, Tash, but we've got 38 seconds remaining. Like, if you want to carry on and discuss even more, like, I'm good to go.
Sure. My friend James would like to have a chat with you. I was wondering if you were interested, because he would sort of like to take over, if you don't mind.
Yeah, definitely. No, look, I'm all open for it. Definitely. If you want to have a crack at that, we'll go for that. Definitely. We've got 14 seconds remaining, but we'll cut it off now. But Tash, thanks for your time. Really appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
It is respected, and definitely do what you got to do and enjoy it.
Yeah, all right, cool. Thank you so
Happy
much.
days, mate. Thanks, mate.